Hey everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to talk about the books I read in February. I kind of continued at first my reading of shorter books from January. So several of these are kind of shorter, and then I moved into reading bigger books later in the month. But it's helped me kickstart my reading to do all these shorter books at the beginning of the year. And I've already accomplished a lot of my goal books. Like I had 25 books I was going to read in 2025, and this month I finished 2 of those books, and one of the books off of my big books to read this year. I had like 12 big books to read in 2025, and I finished one of those. So that's like 3 books off of my goal list that I finished in February. So that's pretty good. So the way I'm going to talk about these, I'm going to start with the book I didn't rate, then talk about my least favorite of the month up to my 5-star read. So let's talk about the one I did not rate, and that's A Katie by Dave Hutchinson. And part of the reason I didn't rate this is because it's really short. It's 105 pages or something like that. And so it's like a sci-fi novella, very quick to read. I read this in one sitting, and it was entertaining, but I had a hard time at the end really knowing how to rate something that goes by so quick. And I wasn't really sure that I love like the writing style, but it has like a twist ending, which if you look this up, that's what everybody says in all the reviews, that's what like made them want to read this, is hearing about it having like a big like surprise or whatever. And so that's why I picked it up. I was like, oh, it's fun, something short I can read. They can see if I can guess the surprise, and I didn't. And so it was fun to like read something quick that I was guessing the whole time and then still have a little surprise at the end. But is that like a 4 or 5-star rating? I don't know. But if you want something short, sci-fi, futuristic, that is just kind of fun to read really quick. I can't really like talk much about what it's about since it's so short, and the back of the book, the synopsis, doesn't really like to me make sense when you read it. Like it doesn't really tell you what this story is about, and I feel like isn't really like the point of it. So I'll just tell you that we are following a colony that in the future has like left Earth, and they're living in kind of like a space station-y kind of place, not necessarily like on a planet. And yeah, and just kind of like what is currently happening in that moment with this like colony that has left Earth, and people from Earth are still looking for them. Yeah, and that's what it's about. I would recommend it, yeah, if you want something short and sci-fi, futuristic, and something you can try to guess the ending. And then let's move on to my 2 3-star reads. These were kind of disappointments for me, but luckily they were both quick reads, so I didn't have to like sit in the disappointment very long. I had picked up If Something Happens to Me by Alex Finley, and I picked this up because I had read a couple other books by Alex Finley. I knew they were fast-paced, fun kind of thrillers, a lot of twists, and I was just like wandering the stacks in the library and was looking for something that I could just read really fast, something I could read in like 2 days that would just hold my attention, be very plot-focused. And I was like kind of like, do I want a romance because it's February? It's like fast and fun, like a short romance, or do I want a thriller? And I saw this and I was like, I've liked his other books. I'll go ahead and pick this. I know it's gonna be fun and fast. It was fast. His chapters are so short. They're like 5-page chapters. They switch around to different like point of views, so it goes really quick because you want to get back to like another person's point of view. So it fit the bill that I think I read this in like a day and a half, like, started it one day, finished it halfway through the next day. So it accomplished that goal. But I didn't feel like it was very high quality or very interesting. It was just something to have. I ended up listening to an audiobook. It was something to have in my ears. And I did sometimes sit down and read it. I kind of went back and forth. Something to kind of like keep me entertained while I was cleaning the house. Served that purpose. And it moved along really quick. But it's very mob focused, which I should have known that because it's not like it surprises you with the fact that it centers around the mob. It's literally in the description. So it says right there that one of the point of views is a mobster. And it just like very much took over the story, like the whole mob kind of thing. And yeah, I just don't find mob stories interesting. And so I wish I had read through the whole, I don't think I read the whole synopsis because I just knew the author. And if I read the whole synopsis, I would have known this is not going to be any more than a 3-star book. Because I just don't find mob stories interesting at all. And so I should have known that this wasn't going to be a great one, but if you don't mind a mob story, it is very fast and has a lot of twists. So there you go, if that's something you're interested in and don't mind a mob story. The other 3-star read was Lore of the Land, Folklore and Wisdom from the Wild Earth by Claire Cox Starkey And Samantha Dolan, I think, is the artist. And this is a disappointment. I had another book like this. I bought 2 of these books at the same time. One was called Lore of the Land. I think it was, the other one was called what? Lore of the Wild, maybe? But the other one had an orange cover. But the same concept. This author and illustrator, they do these like myth little snippets, like little snippets from folklore. And they'll start off like the chapter with a story. So this is like a story from, this is a Czech tale. And then they'll go in and like do like little things related to a topic. So this is creation stories of forests. So this whole chapter is about forests. And then there's like myths around woodland flowers, and then myths around fungi and lichen, myths about woodland spirits. So like that chapter is all about forests and different little snippets from folklore. My problem with this is that, one, I don't think the writing is that great. So when you read the tales, they just don't really compel me at all. I'm sure those tales are interesting when like in actual like folklore, and some of them did seem like interesting plots, but I just don't really love this author's way of writing a tale. So none of the tales really pulled me in. And then when you get to these little ones, little snippets, you know, they're so short. Like it's only like maybe 2 sentences about each like kind of thing from a different mythology. And so I just don't feel like I remember any of it. So in the moment I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting that that culture thinks that, or that this is the origin of, you know, earthquakes in this culture or whatever. So, I mean, some of that stuff's interesting, but since it's not sitting in like one culture or one folklore for the whole book, or more than 2 sentences, it's all gone. Like, I don't think I could tell you like one single snippet from this. And that's the same problem I had with the last one. So I give it 3 stars because in the moment, it's fine, it's entertaining, but nothing stays with me. I don't really want to revisit it because I don't think the author's writing is like spectacular. It's just fine. So I guess if you want something that you just want like a little snippet of, and you want some nice pictures, you could get this. I don't necessarily fully recommend it for my taste, but obviously on Goodreads, there's a lot of people that do really like it. So, you know, take my opinion with a grain of salt. It just wasn't what I really wanted. And now we're moving into my 4-star reads. And the first one was also something in the graphic medium. I read The Tea Dragon Tapestry by Kay O'Neill. This is the 3rd and at least now the final book in the Tea Dragon series of graphic novels. I just think these are so cozy and beautiful. Like this, I'll just show you a snippet of the artwork. It's just all of them are in these beautiful kind of fallish colors. Like this one's like kind of leans on the purpley oranges. Some of them are more like orangey green, but there's always like a very fall kind of palette in my opinion. Even if they don't take place in the fall, they have just that warm color palette. And I just love the color palette. I like the drawings. I like the characters. These are 4 stars, not 5 stars, because I don't feel like the stories and the characters really stick with me. Like this is the 3rd in a series, but not a lot of these characters I know they were in previous books, but I didn't really remember what they did in the previous books. So it wasn't like I was compelled by the characters, but these are just wholesome and sweet. They're just very cozy fantasy about, you know, people that have little tea dragons, and I love the little tea dragons that are in them. There's good topics. Like this one is a lot about just believing in yourself and like finding what your like thing is in life, your passion or what you want to do in life. And almost all the storylines follow that kind of theme in this book. So I would definitely recommend these. They have beautiful pictures and compelling storylines, good themes. They don't necessarily like stick with me as my favorites of all time, but I would definitely recommend these and give them to other people to read because I think they're beautiful and sweet. Then my next 4-star was one I started in January, and this one I would definitely recommend you read in winter. This is called The Way Past Winter by Karen Millwood Hargrave. And it was just a great thing to read when it was snowy outside because most of this book is in very much winter, an eternal winter basically. So we are following 3 sisters, but mostly Mila is the main sister that we are following. But we're seeing how her and her sisters, their mother died, their father left them, and when their father left them like a few years ago, suddenly winter started to stay. So it's been like 3 or 4 years and it has been consistently winter that whole time. They have an older brother, and at the beginning of this story, something happens to their older brother and they need to go and like save him. And so this is like a quest story where these three sisters are going to find their brother and kind of hopefully figure the way past winter and how to get like the different seasons back for their community. And so this is very wintry, where like all the travel is by dog sled, which is nice. You know, the connection Mila has with her dogs is a lot of part of the story. There's a lot of sisterly family themes going on here. So I really enjoyed this. This was very cozy kind of to read in the winter. It's slow moving. I wouldn't call this like heavy plot based, but I liked the characters. I liked the overall storyline, and I would definitely recommend reading this like next January or whatever is winter where you live. Then my next 4-star was my big book for the month. I'm trying to read like one larger book every month, and this is Bloodhound by Tamora Pierce. This is the second in the Becca Cooper series. I had read the first one, is it in December? Did I read this one? Yeah, it's right here. Terrier was the first one. And so I want to keep like continuing my series that I start. And this is such an interesting series because when I'm not reading it, I'm not necessarily compelled to read it. But when I'm reading it, I'm really invested in the characters and what's happening. And they're pretty slow moving plots, but I'm very invested. And I think it's the style of writing because this is all written in like a journal. So Becca Cooper is writing her journal. And because it's her journal, it's very personal of what's happening in her day-to-day life, what's happening in her job. She's like basically a cop in this fantasy world. They're called dogs, but they are the police force in their community. And we're just following her day-to-day life. The cases, some of them are really boring cases like people who steal, and some of them are like big overarching cases. Like the first one was following they were trying to find a serial killer. And this one, it's like a what's it called? Like when people are switching out real money for fake money, counterfeit. It was a counterfeit money scheme. And so they're trying to figure out who is creating the counterfeit money and is kind of like ruining the economy. And so that's the overall plot, but then there's obviously little things that are happening day to day that aren't fully around that. You know, she's also like having friendships and potential relationships, like romantic relationships, and it's just following her day-to-day life. And I really just, when I'm reading it, I just am invested in Becca and what is happening in her life. So these aren't like 5-star because when I'm not reading them, I'm not like, oh, I wonder what's happening with Becca. But when I'm reading them, I'm fully in all the like mundane things that are happening and all the exciting things that are happening. There's also some fantasy because she has some special powers. She can talk to seagulls, no, pigeons. I was trying to think of the birds that, you know, consume a lot of like trash and food that's on the street. So she can talk to pigeons, and these pigeons actually inhabit the souls of dead people. So she's able to talk to people that have been like murdered or have died and kind of find out who's committing acts of violence against people in the community by talking to the pigeons. So there is that fantasy aspect. She also has like animal companions. In the first one, she has a cat. And in this one, she has a dog, which is part of the Bloodhound. She doesn't like talk to the dog. Like the cat, she actually has conversations with. Like he's like a magical cat. Where this is just a dog. But it is a very talented dog because the Chew is a scent hound and helps Becca in her police work. So yeah, I would recommend this if you like something that they're a little longer, a little more slow paced, but you just want to follow somebody's day-to-day and solving crimes. I didn't love this one as much as the first because I think, you know, counterfeit scheme is not as exciting as serial killer, but it was still interesting. I still like Becca as a character and following her. And then last is my favorite book of the month is a super tiny one. This is only what, like 112 pages. But packs a punch. Definitely recommend it. If you don't want to spend a lot of money for like a tiny little book, I would recommend this on audiobook because Robin Wall Kimmerer narrates it herself and her voice is just magical to listen to. This is The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And this is kind of just like an extended essay where Robin Wall Kimmerer is talking about basically our economy and how we buy, sell, and trade and all that, and how we can learn from the natural world how to do things a little more, not from a because, you know, our economy kind of goes from a state of scarcity of like, you know, we have to make things scarce so that they become more expensive and people have higher demand. And, you know, she's saying that like in the natural world, the service berries are giving of themselves to the birds so that the birds will then reproduce more service berries. And they are like reciprocating mutual benefits amongst them. And I think it's just a good thing to remember. There's a different way to do things and that we can learn from nature how to do that. And so it has kind of a manifesto kind of feel to it. I think it's great in this, what our world is going through right now. I think it's a good reminder of how we can like actually care for each other and live out of a place of abundance instead of scarcity and fear. So I would highly recommend it if you just want to listen to it. It's only a couple hours long instead of like, you know, spending the money. I did want to spend the money to support her as an author, but you could definitely get a hold of this in an ebook or audiobook version. And I definitely recommend listening to it because I listen to it while like reading it because I just love listening to her voice. And I would definitely listen to it again just to be reminded. So that was 5 stars. I think she's great. And I will read anything that she writes. And that's it. That's all the things I read in February. I didn't read as much, like as many different books as I did in January, which is fine because in January I read everything short. I'm starting to like, you know, mix in some bigger books. I had a lot of things that I didn't finish in February that moved into March that I have to finish. And right now in March, I am just like reading all the things at once, which is not like the best thing to be doing. So I haven't like really finished anything in March. I'm just reading like 10 things at one time. I just feel like my brain is very scattered right now. And it's like, well, now I want to read that mystery book. And now I want to read that fantasy book. And now I want to read that little cozy book. And now I want to read the romance. So I'm feeling very all over the place and just doing all the things at once, which is fine because I'm enjoying basically everything I'm reading. So I'm just going to go with it and read kind of chaotically. So that's it. That's everything I read in February. Let me know if you've read any of these books and want to talk about them, and I'll see you next time. Bye.